Jade started at the company about a year after I did. He was in IT and got the cubicle next to mine. At first glance, he seemed like an ordinary, quiet guy who was soft-spoken and mostly kept to himself. But there was something off about him. The cubicle walls were paper-thin, so I heard more of his life than I wanted to. Specifically, I heard his wife. Lucy called him constantly, multiple times a day, always screaming. I could hear her voice through the phone, shrill and vicious, even when he held it away from his ear.
I don't know why I even married you.
I didn't mean to upset you, Lucy.
That's all you ever do. Exist and disappoint.
I'm sorry.
It was always like that, or even worse. The calls were getting so brutal that one day during lunch, I couldn't help asking him about it.
Oh, Lucy's fine. She's just going through a lot of stress at work and her mother's sick.
He smiled sadly, picking at his sandwich. That doesn't mean she can pick on you like this. I think you should talk it out, dude.
I tried. It's complicated. I love her too much to watch her walk away, Samuel.
I didn't push. It was none of my business. But the calls got worse. One afternoon, she called him a pathetic excuse for a man, loud enough that people 3 cubicles over could hear. Jade just sat there, with his shoulders hunched, whispering apologies into the phone. Suddenly, a week before Valentine's, he stopped showing up to work. Initially, we figured he was sick or something, but by day 4, HR was calling his emergency contacts. Finally, after nearly a week, he walked into the office, looking like a ghost of himself. I almost didn't recognize him. His hair was greasy and uncombed, with dark circles under his eyes like bruises. His clothes were wrinkled, and his shirt was buttoned wrong. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 5 days. I asked if he was okay when he sat down at his desk. He apologized for not calling in and told me his wife had left him.
We had a huge fight, and she said she was done, packed a bag, and left.
He said he couldn't function or eat or sleep, just kept thinking about her and everything he did wrong.
But today, I woke up and decided I needed to take care of myself. Made myself a proper meal. Felt good to cook again. Really therapeutic, actually. Taking something raw and making it into something beautiful and nourishing.
His eyes had this distant look.
Lucy always said I couldn't do anything right. I wish she could see this.
I told him that it was good and he needed to take care of himself. Lunchtime came, and Jade pulled out his lunchbox. It wasn't his usual Tupperware with sad leftovers, but a nice insulated bag. He opened it, and the smell hit me immediately. It was something rich and savory, with perfectly seasoned meat. Inside were 2 thick steaks, cooked to a perfect medium rare, pink in the middle, seared on the outside, with what looked like a red wine reduction sauce. That looks incredible, Jade.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time on it. Had to be respectful with the meat, you know?
He cut into one with a plastic knife, the meat tender and juicy.
Here, freshly grass-fed. Try some.
He cut a piece and held it out on his fork. I took it and ate the piece. It was incredible, tender and flavorful, seasoned perfectly with rosemary and garlic. It was easily the best steak I'd ever tasted. I asked what cut it was. Jade grinned ear to ear and said,
"It's a special kind I've been preparing for days now."
He took another bite, chewing slowly with his eyes closed. For the first time since I'd known him, Jade looked peaceful and even proud. I felt happy for him until the afternoon came and 3 police officers walked into our office. They went straight to Jade's cubicle and told him he needed to come with them. They cuffed him while everyone watched. As they passed my desk, he turned and looked directly at me.
"I'm sorry, Samuel, but I really didn't want to taste it alone. I hope you enjoyed it." Please savor the taste, because that's all that's left of her now.
My stomach dropped. 20 minutes later, 2 detectives arrived to interview everyone. They pulled me aside and asked what exactly I'd eaten for lunch. I told them steak, really good steak. The detectives said Jade's wife had been missing for 6 days, and they'd found remains in his apartment that morning. In his mixer, his refrigerator, and packaged into meal prep containers. He said the medical examiner believed Jade had been consuming the remains over the past several days, cooking and eating them to dispose of the body. I made it to the bathroom before I threw up, kept throwing up until there was nothing left. They tested what was left in Jade's lunchbox and confirmed it was human tissue. I'd eaten a piece of her thigh. That was 3 weeks ago. Jade confessed to everything, told police he'd strangled Lucy during an argument, panicked about disposing of the body, and decided the only way was to make her disappear completely. He'd spent 5 days butchering, cooking, and eating her. He's in jail now, awaiting trial. I'm in therapy twice a week. I can't eat meat anymore, or even smell it cooking without my stomach turning. I've lost 15 pounds and can't sleep. I keep tasting that bite of steak and seeing Jade's peaceful smile. The worst part was that I told him it was delicious, and sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep, I remember exactly how it tasted. I hate myself for not knowing, but most of all, I hate that some small, sick part of me understands why he looked so peaceful that day. He'd finally silenced her screaming, and he'd shared his victory meal with the only person in the office who'd been kind to him.
When I was 13, I had a babysitter that would come once a week, as my mom would work late every Saturday night. I always thought I was too old to have a babysitter still, and hated having to have someone watch over me all the time. The main person my mom would have over was a 20-year-old guy, Thomas, that was the son of one of my mom's work friends. This guy was really weird, and I didn't like him at all. He didn't talk much and just acted really awkward and strange, but whenever he interacted with my mom, he would act extra nice and talkative. I would bring it up with her, but she'd always say I was just trying to get rid of him so I could be alone. Anyways, it was a normal Saturday night, and Thomas had just arrived, a little late as usual. My mom talked with him for a little bit and then headed to work. I walked over to the couch and turned on my Xbox to play some video games just to pass the time. I'd usually go to bed at 10, so I'd have to spend 4 or 5 hours with Thomas. Most of the time, I'd find something to do alone, because he'd never really talk to me and would just hang out in the kitchen or in our loft area. And today was no different. He stayed in the kitchen for a little bit, and after a few minutes, I heard him talking to someone. I tried to listen as best I could, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. The kitchen was right behind the living room that I was in, but he was talking really quietly. He went on for a few minutes, and then the talking stopped, followed by him coming into the living room and standing next to the couch. I looked up at him and saw he was holding his phone. Thomas said someone was going to come over, just for a second, and not to worry. I didn't really know how to respond other than to just say, okay. It was pretty weird though, and I knew it was definitely not something any babysitter should do, but I also knew that there was nothing I could really do about it. The next 20 minutes were really awkward, as he didn't take out his phone or anything. He just sat there on the couch with me, looking around and not saying anything. He would rarely ever be in the same room as me, so this was pretty out of the ordinary. Our living room was right by the front door though, so I guess he was just waiting for the person to get here. Eventually, a car pulled into the driveway and a man came knocking at the door. Thomas shot up and went over to the door, then stood right in front of it for a moment before turning to me and telling me that he'd be back in just a minute. Then he opened the door and walked outside and shut the door behind him. This whole situation had me curious as to what was going on with him. The blinds on the windows were cracked open just enough for me to see the two of their shadows as they moved around in the driveway. I could tell that the man handed Thomas a large bag and then got in his car and drove away. A few seconds later, I heard the lid of the garbage can outside slam shut, followed by Thomas coming back inside through the front door. The whole interaction seemed odd, and I couldn't help myself from asking him what it was all about. Thomas replied, telling me that it was just his friend and that he left his wallet at his friend's house last night, so he was just dropping it off. I could tell there was something wrong with the way he answered, and it didn't explain the large bag I saw him holding, but I didn't want to question him any further, so I just said okay and went back to playing my game. But things got a lot more strange as the night progressed. During the next hour, I could hear Thomas having multiple phone calls with someone in the kitchen, and at one point, he went into the far loft area where I could hear him raising his voice. Still though, I couldn't make any sense of what he was saying. After maybe the 5th or 6th call, the same car from earlier pulled into the driveway again, and Thomas immediately ran outside without saying anything. I could tell from their body language and the way that they were moving around that they were clearly arguing about something. Then Thomas left for 30 seconds, and then came back with the bag from earlier. The man took it and put it in his back seat, then drove off in a hurry. Thomas came back inside, and I could see the frustration on his face. He went over to the kitchen and didn't come back until 10, when he told me I had to go to bed. I got ready and laid in bed while Thomas stayed downstairs. He would usually stay until my mom got home at 12, but just a few minutes later I heard the front door open and close. I waited for 10 minutes, then got up and went downstairs to see if he was still there, but sure enough, he had left. I looked out the window and his car was gone too. I stayed up in bed for a few hours to wait for my mom to get home, and then told her everything that had happened. She seemed to believe me this time, as she also thought it was strange and really unprofessional to leave the house before she came home. The next day, she tried calling him, but he didn't answer. Eventually, though, she got a hold of her friend, who was Thomas's mom, and asked what happened, and she said that Thomas came home feeling sick. We both knew that was a lie and didn't make much sense, as he could have just called her and told her he wasn't feeling well. Anyways, it's been almost 10 years since all that happened, and I still find myself thinking about how weird that night was. I always wonder what the two were arguing about, why he left, and what was in the bag.
Sophia started at our accounting firm 3 months ago. She was beautiful, confident, and laughed at all of my jokes. She made me feel seen in a way my wife Rachel hadn't in years. The flirt started with coffee breaks that lasted too long, then lunch, where we'd talk about anything except work. Sophia's hand would brush mine, reaching for sugar, and I started feeling alive again. Then, one night, after everyone left, she kissed me in the conference room, and I kissed her back. We started meeting in empty offices during lunch for quick makeout sessions that felt dangerous and thrilling. I told myself it wasn't really cheating if we didn't sleep together. But soon enough, the rumors started at work. I panicked and told Sophia we needed to be more careful.
Or we should stop sneaking around.
She traced her finger along my collar.
Come to my place this weekend, Dylan. We'll have real privacy. Take things all the way. I want to show you every part of me, even the ugly ones.
My heart pounded. I'd have to lie to Rachel about working late.
Then lie to her. I'll make it worth it. You'll forget she even exists.
Saturday night, I told Rachel the client presentation got moved up, and I needed to pull an all-nighter at the office. She barely looked up from her book and just told me to eat my meals on time. I showed up at Sophia's house at 8 with a bottle of wine, dressed nice, nervous, guilty, and excited all at once. She answered in a black dress that made me forget every reservation I'd had and pulled me inside. The smell of rotting garbage hit me immediately. The living room was a disaster, with trash piled in corners, pizza boxes stacked on the couch, and newspapers covering the floor. The kitchen was worse, with dishes molding in the sink and garbage bags overflowing. Sophia apologized for the mess as she took the wine unbothered and said she'd been meaning to clean. Every instinct screamed to leave. Maybe we should head out instead.
Don't be silly, Dee. I made a special dinner just for you.
The dining room table was set with candles lit. She brought out pasta, and I forced myself to eat.
Your wife, does she know about us? About what we're doing?
Sophia smiled mid-meal. Huh? You think I'd be here if she knew?
Poor thing. Sitting home alone while her husband's here with me. Men are always the same. You want the thrill but can't handle the reality. She probably suspects. Women always know. I knew when my husband cheated.
Something about her tone made my skin crawl. I started to get up, saying maybe we should reconsider, but she held my hand.
You feel guilty. That's cute. But you're here anyway. You already made your choice, Dylan. Might as well finish what you started. Let's go upstairs.
The bedroom was worse than downstairs, with clothes everywhere, empty bottles, and that chemical smell mixing with rot. But Sophia pushed me onto the bed and climbed on top of me, kissing me hard. My hands moved to her waist. I forgot all about Rachel or the smell. I was so lost in her that I didn't see the blade until it was too late. She drove the knife right into my shoulder, and I screamed. White-hot pain exploded through my body as blood sprayed everywhere.
My husband made the same face before I killed him for cheating on me.
She giggled as she twisted the knife in. My loud shrieks filled the house while her giggles intensified.
You screamed like that too.
I threw her off and stumbled toward the door, clutching my shoulder. Blood poured between my fingers. She followed, laughing with the knife dripping blood.
Where are you going, Dylan? You came here to f me. Let's finish what you started. You wanted to be a cheater. Now you get to die like one.
I ran down the hallway, dizzy from blood loss, and saw a door. I threw it open and stumbled down the stairs, slamming and locking it shut behind me. I could hear footsteps overhead. She was humming an old melody as she scraped the knife against the wall. I fumbled for a light switch in the darkness. The bulb flickered on, and I froze. Some 5 men, in various stages of decomposition, were arranged against the walls. Some were recent enough that I could see their faces. They were all around my age, with wedding rings still on their fingers. The pasta swirled in my stomach, and I puked all over the floor. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. I told them everything. Above me, Sophia was pounding on the door, giggling. I could hear her getting some objects to get the door open. The dispatcher told me to stay put and that help was on the way. I just prayed they'd reach me faster than she would. The door was rattling. Sophia was screaming at me. She was pissed that I had my phone, and I called the police. I pressed my jacket against my shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding. The pounding stopped suddenly, and footsteps moved away. A door slammed, and a car engine roared. Police arrived 7 minutes later and found me in the basement, surrounded by corpses. Found the blood trail upstairs and evidence of at least 6 murders. Sophia's real name was Jennifer Cole. Her actual husband had been her first victim 5 years ago. Everything else was fabricated. She'd been hunting married men who strayed, seducing them, then killing them. I spent 3 days in the hospital. The knife had missed major arteries by centimeters. Rachel came and sat by my bed in silence for hours before finally speaking. She said the police told her everything about where I was and why I was there. I started to apologize, but she told me not to. She said she didn't want my apologies. She wanted a divorce. She left and filed papers that week. I didn't contest anything. Jennifer was still at large, possibly hunting under a new identity. I see a therapist now, PTSD from the attack, but it's more than that. It's guilt and shame, the knowledge that I was so willing to betray someone who loved me that I almost got myself killed. And maybe, at some point, I deserved it.